the cache data with that hold file. And obviously that's because, you know, that will obviously take a lot more time, and it'll make that hold file very, very big. But if you're in a situation where that cache data is very, very important and it takes a long time to actually calculate, it may be a really good idea to actually turn on save cache with hold. Otherwise, obviously, you could lose that data if you had a crash. Next, we have the manual update group, and the first button is the update button. And when you press this button, particle flow will update the time range you define using the parameters that you can find below it. To the right of the update button is the clear button, which you can see here. I've just hit it there to clear out any data. Obviously there wasn't any, so it didn't really do anything. And you know, when I click this button, it'll flush the particle cache from memory. And it's a good idea to use this before doing an update, as it can ensure that you basically have a blank canvas on which particle flow can store its data to, because it's, you know, you could actually cache half the simulation and then you could stop and you could scrub very quickly to you know, or you could basically stop, and then if you save that file out to disk, it's probably going to reuse, it's going to keep the second half of that cache in memory if you have manual update turned off. And when you render out that simulation, that's obviously going to cause some pretty weird results. Really, you'll basically end up with two simulations sort of butted up against each other. For the manual update, again, you have, as we discussed earlier, this range, and you can either choose to cache the complete range, the active segment, or a custom range. And as I said, when you choose the custom range, these options become available, and then you can define exactly what the custom range is. So that's basically exactly the same as the range value up here. When you're doing the cache, if you click on update, it'll actually update the particles in the viewport. But if I turn that off and I click on update, you can see it doesn't display the particles, and you're going to get probably quite a big speed boost in it calculating the entire cache if you've got some very, very display heavy particles going on in your scene. If you're just using dots and lines, then you're not going to get that much of a difference, but if you're using instance geometry, then obviously that could make quite a big difference. Obviously you can see that's on by default. Last options, as we just discussed earlier, the memory usage, you've got your limit, you've got your total number of memory that's been used at the moment, and you've got the memory usage per frame. That's it. That's the cache operator. Very, very useful. Like I said, if you want to get any sort of interactive playback on a very, very heavy particle flow. Also very useful when you want to save out your particle data to disk to ensure that you get the same simulation reproduced on all the machines in your render farm. Okay, let's move on from here, and we're going to look at the next operator, which is the display operator.